Bills. Ooh, letter for a party. What's this? The old review schedule. Well, according to this, I haven't done a review since August, and it's what? November? December, maybe? Better get back to it. Hello, everybody. This is Looks Lego Productions, and welcome back to the triumphant return of Doctor Who Change. I said in my review of The Web of Fear that the Cybermen became the second Doctor's go-to villain, so of course they would be used a lot. They were featured as villain in 4 of his stories, with all but one being able to release on DVD. The other one has too many episodes missing to be formally released animated. Also, it hasn't been reconstructed by Loose Cannon yet, and Loose Cannon recently went down, losing their domain. So if you want to watch it, you have to find one done by a different company, or just sync up the telesnaps on the BBC website with the audio. Also, it's usually considered not very good. So guess which story we're looking at today? Oh joy. Yes, we'll be looking at what's considered the worst Cyberman story of the 60s and the introduction of the final 1960s era companion Zoe Harriet in The Wheel in Space. Let's begin with episode 1, where we start where Fury from the Deep left off, with the Doctor and Jamie taking off in the TARDIS, leaving Victoria behind. The Doctor assures Jamie that she'll be alright and tells him that they're landing. They take a look at the scanner and find that they've lost the picture. Jamie checks the fault locator and they realize everything's alright, as a beat shows up and if the scanner changes to night again. The Doctor explains that the TARDIS is warning them as the power overloads and the fluid link mercury vaporizes. They rush out while the TARDIS becomes a regular police box. The Doctor explains he took out the time vector generator to save them, and they notice they're in a rocket with artificial gravity. He gives Jamie a lemon sherbet, and they question what could possibly be wrong, and notice an oil track leading down the corridor. A machine has led something down the corridor, and they decide to follow the tracks through some doors, but find a locked door and wonder what caused the TARDIS to register this space. They find living quarters in water, while a small robot waddles up the corridor and lights up on a control panel. Jamie wonders why there'd be only 2 people for this rocket, which the Doctor explains that they're only stuck floating in space. They search for Mercury and don't find any before they go to the control room. Jamie demands the roast beef, and the Doctor uses the food machine to get them some square bars like the ones in the Daleks. Jamie wonders what Victoria is doing now, and they eat dinner, and he decides to take a nap. The robot goes to one of the doors that Jamie opened and goes past it. The Doctor looks out the window and tries talking to a sleeping Jamie and hears something at the door. He checks the corridor and examines the oil and adjusts some monitor controls. The robot goes into the control room and starts getting the rocket into motion, which causes the Doctor to hit his head and Jamie to wake up. They find the door was sealed and they lock themselves inside. The robot stops the rocket and goes into a pod, letting white eggs float out. Outside, there's a wheel-like space station floating around in space, which the eggs float towards. The robot goes to the controls and watches the space station. Jamie notices it, and the Doctor seals the door and steps outside into the path of the robot. Jamie throws a blanket over the robot, and they rush back into the cabin as the robot throws the blanket off. The robot begins to burn through the door as Jamie uses the time vector generator from the TARDIS to destroy it. On the space station, workers notice the rocket. A man has Tanya check it and notices that it isn't moving without any contact. Its name is the Silver Carrier, and it's 90 million miles off course. The man, controller Travis Bennett, has Enrico call to it, but it doesn't respond. They all together to transmit anything and get no reaction, and think the crew might be dead with the rocket drifting. The eggs float around the station's outer rim and continue to collide as they are registered on the equipment with drops in air pressure. They have Leo try to put the X-ray laser on it as the Doctor passes out from exhaustion. This leads into episode 2, where Tanya tells Leo off for laughing at the controller, who's gone off with Dr. Corwin. On the silver carrier, Jamie continues to watch the wheel. Corwin subjects Jarvis to psychoanalysis, who has gone crazy for wanting it to blow everything up. They should check to see if there is any life on the rockets first, while Jamie uses the time vector generator, which causes a sound to go through to the wheel and start a panic. It takes some time for things to settle down. Jarvis and Corwin are interrupted by Tanya, so they can take the unconscious man to sickbay, realizing someone's on board the rocket, and Jarvis has to get some men go over and find Jamie. Jamie notices them coming and lets them in through the airlock door. He tells them about the injured doctor. The wheel calls off to a rocket as Corwin examines the doctor, and they realize that something is outside the wheel, being the giant weird spheres. Tanya and Leo discuss the air pressure drops, and she's worried, but doesn't want to disturb Corwin. She thinks something is on the rocket, and Leo says that he'll be there for her. Corwin examines Jamie, who introduces himself and the doctor as Dr. John Smith. He makes up an alibi on that he was sick and the doctor was unconscious, and Corwin says that they can stay for a week when the rocket will be coming to pick them up. She says to find Zoe, their librarian, to show him around. When he leaves, she informs Zoe that he's coming. Jamie goes to the library as Zoe is recording some information. She laughs at Jamie's kilt and asks if he's Scandinavian, and he threatens to spank her. Oh boy. They go on a tour and they see the botanist, and Zoe shows off her photographic memory along with the controls for the X-ray laser. Zoe wishes to meet the doctor, and while Corwin and Jarvis talk, they think that the doctor might be up soon. Jarvis is nervous about the mystery, and Corwin tells him that he's not fit, but lying about his fever and the doctor's name. She says they might be an agent or stowaway. Jarvis is paranoid and storms off to deal with it. Zoe shows Jamie around the operations and communications rooms, and he explains that what the wheel is, and that they're going to destroy the rocket, and everyone gets ready to see it blow up. Jamie sneaks out and goes to sabotage the power room, and Jarvis goes to find him. Tanya explains to Leo that she smells trouble with the rocket being sinister. And of course, her nose is never wrong. The silver carrier has 2 of the eggs start to hatch, and we see that inside of them are Cybermen waking up from slumber and getting out of the eggs. This leads into episode 3, where back on the wheel, Tanya is convinced that the rocket is dangerous, and Leo reassures her that it'll be blown up soon. Meanwhile, Jamie has sabotaged the X-ray laser, and he's caught, so they put the wheel on yellow alert. Tanya and Leo stay on edge as the star is set to nearing the Nova phase. The 2 Cybermen have an audience with the Cyber Planner, who says that the Cybermets have been launched, and the Cybermen say that Phase 3 will be put underway. Although voiced by Peter Hawkins and Roy Skelton this time around, their voices seem a little bit off to me, especially considering the last time we saw them was Tomb of the Cybermen, having this very creepy, electronic, weird voice. Corwin and Zoe go to see what all the fuss is about, while Jarvis just has the engineer Duggan look over the laser, which will take a week to fix, as Corwin comes in and asks why, and realizes that they're in trouble with the Nova Star blowing up, and he's taken away. Duggan looks over the mess and notices one of the adorable Cybermats and decides to keep it as a pet in a cupboard. Jarvis berates Jamie, who explains that the rocket must not be destroyed on orders from the doctor, who is awake now, after his vacation in episode 2. He's mad that Jamie is leaving him to clean up Jamie's own mess, and that he doesn't know what happened because he's just beginning to enjoy his own rest. Jamie tells him what has happened on the rocket because he hit his head. He doesn't remember the servo robot and realizes that there's some sort of menace coming. Ooh, creepy. The Cyber Planner prepares Phase 4 as Enrico, Leo, Tanya, Zoe, and Corwin try to deal with the Nova Star and the Hercules cluster. The problem is that they don't have the laser working, and Leo goes to tell Jarvis about what they need to do, and Zoe says they need to get it up and running. Zoe is, of course, rarely wrong about anything, and Leo calls her a robot, all brain, no heart. Makes you wonder what's going to go happen when the Cybermen eventually invade the wheel. The Cyberman breaks out of its cupboard and scurries off, and Duggan worries about it, so he asks someone to check the stocks. He says he'll murder the pest as in the corner more Cybermets crawl out. Corwin examines the doctor and Jamie, asking the doctor about headaches, she warns about the dangers of concussion. The doctor does remember why Jamie had to save the rocket, and Corwin tells her that they're in trouble with the meteorites, and Zoe comes in to ask how the doctor ended up piloting the rocket. He asks what she does here. She's an astrophysicist with honors, and Jamie berates her for not knowing what they did. She has a theory that it had to be piloted and refueled in space, which is logical. But of course, logic, my dear Zoe, merely enables one to be wrong with authority. She's convinced it was driven here. Well, the Cyberman planner has the Cybermets eat through the supply of the minerals that they need to control the rocket, and they remove the controls, so the Cybermets are now running loose. Corwin talks with Duggan and they realize that the power rods are destroyed and that the Cybermets have corroded their stock. They realize that they must find more replacements or else the stars will destroy the wheel. The Mats attack Duggan sent to the stock, who stops one of them with quick plastic. The Jamie used to sabotage the rocket, but the guy's killed anyway. Corwin, Corwin rushes in with Duggan to find him dead on the floor. Jamie, Zoe, and the doctor look at the plastic creature that was frozen, and the doctor explains that there's a solution here, and that the creature was there to sabotage the wheel. Jamie thinks that the saboteur is there making his move, and the doctor realizes they can use the X-ray machine to see what the creature actually is. Duggan is put under restriction for his tampering, meanwhile, and Leo is to work on the laser, while Tanya is to work on Leo's as Leo's subordinate. Jarvis and Corwin go to talk, and Tanya says she's sorry to Duggan, who thinks he might be losing it, and he goes to his quarters. Leo and Tanya realize that they can't spend time together, while Jarvis realizes there's too much unexplained, and Corwin makes him go through the facts. The rocket comes near, and the two meteorite storms are coming. Two strangers appear, and Duggan only goes crazy after the problems start. The rocket is only the common factor, and Jarvis says the people are going over to see the rocket. The X-ray shows a Cybermat in the encased plastic, and the Doctor and Jamie realize that the Cybermen are on the rocket as two people spacewalk over. Inside, they're confronted by the Cybermen, who use their headlights to put them under their control and take them back to the wheel. And now that we can actually see the Cybermen designs, I must say that they're kind of off, because their three fingers hands only appearing in this story, and their voices aren't the best in comparison to the Moonbase or Tomb Cybermen. This leads into episode 4, where the Doctor tries to convince Jarvis that the Cybermen are coming, but is getting nowhere. Jarvis is doing the whole Cybermen aren't real thing that's so common in these Space Under Siege stories, and the Doctor gives an introduction to them. Jarvis thinks that, of course, it's all rubbish. Meanwhile, the Cybermen get into big boxes and are taken over to the wheel by the two astronauts in a very slow sequence. Jarvis says that the Cybermen can't get inside, but Jamie says they're coming. Jarvis suggests that they'll just float through the landing bay doors, and Corwin says they must at least take precautions. And Zoe has Zoe get to Duggan. The two astronauts are let in through airlock 5 with the power rods that they need to get the wheel up and running again. Tanya, of course, reports to Jarvis, who gives the okay. Duggan sees the Cybermat and confirms it as the bug that he picked up. Zoe takes him back so she can get calculations, and they realize that the Cybermen are trying to put the wheel out of action. Well, the Doctor thinks that the power was put out of action just for a completely different reason. Zoe looks at the star calculations while Jamie interrupts her and asks her many unimportant questions. She berates him for ruining her tape and plays it back, which he doesn't understand how it's work. Which really gives a good start for the Jamie and Zoe relationship, and showing how fast Jamie actually gets over Victoria, who they were probably in love with. Leo and his crew are trying to take care of the laser, while Jarvis gives Duggan over to help work with the work and leaves. They realize that it can still fire, and Leo gives the team 45 minutes. Chang, the guy letting in the astronauts, comes in to relieve Leo, because he deserves a rest as well. Corwin has the X-rayed the Doctor, who wants to know about Jarvis. Corwin says that Jarvis only likes phenomena outside the laws of physics, and the Doctor wonders what'll happen as more difficult problems arise. Jarvis checks on Tanya, and Corwin tells the Doctor to rest, while Jamie comes in, and the Doctor says the Cybermen are trying to get to the treasures of Earth. Earth when Jarvis enters, exclaiming that everything is doing well, and allows the doctor and Jamie to leave the hospital room. He thinks that there's nothing that he can't handle, clearly having his mind having snapped already. Duggan sends chains into where the rods have been brought, and a Cyberman attacks and kills him. The body is dumped, and the two astronauts bring over the power rods. Tanya tells Leo that someone just used the incinerator, but no one's down there. The astronaut gives Duggan the rods, and they say that the meteorites can't destroy the wheel. Duggan puts in some of the rods as they claim that the meteorites must not harm the wheel for the second times. The wheel will be operational in about 6 to 7 hours. A Cyberman enters and puts Duggan under his control. Zoe asks Corwin about his report, which was ordered to forget about finding a new element. Corwin isn't surprised because Jarvis has lost it, and she shouldn't worry. And Zoe's lack of emotion comes up again, which Zoe hates because she doesn't want to be thought of as a freak and wants to be able to feel things. Corwin assures her that she will feel. Tanya and Leo show the doctor around and they get him some coffee, when Jamie comes in and makes sure the doctor gets some mercury for the TARDIS. Well, Zoe realizes the meteors are coming in too fast. The worry is if Jarvis will be up to the job, and Zoe says the astronauts brought the power rods. The doctor tells Corwin that the Cybermen are here in the crate because the men were hypnotized. Although they are defended by drugs, so they can't check a signal. So they check a signal if anyone's been hypnotized. They look over the wheel and see Duggan. Zoe asks Duggan's, and they notice someone is affected. They go after Duggan, who causes an explosion and falls to the floor dead. The doctor claims that the Cybermen are here, and an alert must be put out so they can stop the cyber control with the metal plate on the back of the neck. Zoe tries to do something but can. Meanwhile, the doctor and Jamie go down to the airlock as a Cyberman comes down the stairs, following behind. This leads into episode 5, where the doctor and Jamie hide while the Cybermen bring up one of the boxes, and they emerge from their hiding. The doctor realizes how easy it will be for the Cybermen to destroy the wheel by filtering out all the air. He calls up to Control and tells them they need to lock off all the airlock doors, while Jamie notices something moving as they seal the locks. The Cybermat is what moved, as another follows and gets closer to them. Enrico emits a frequency to stun the Cybermen, making them turn away and blow up. They show them a Cyberman, while Tanya notices energy reading as the Cybermen report to the Cyber Planner and are given the order to take over the wheel. The radio is sabotaged and the meteorites might be coming, while Leo can't call Corwin for help. Zoe and Corwin show Jarvis the Cybermat, who still thinks that it doesn't exist, although there's the definite proof right in front of his eyes. The doctor says that she must take over. Zoe is mad that she doesn't know something, and Jamie confronts her, and she has nothing left if they get out of this. Leo gets no response from the powerhouse when one of the technicians tries to leave a gun is pulled on him by the astronauts, who get slammed into the wall. One of them is killed, but a Cyberman hypnotizes the technician. He gives up valuable information and disposes the body of the dead astronaut. Zoe tries to feed Jarvis, and the doctor demands that everyone gets plates fitted as the meteorites come in at breakneck speed. The technician Flanagan calls up and says the laser's ready to fire, so it does. They take a random shot and try to get it to work. They perform more tests as the doctor says that the laser was just to get the Cybermen into the wheel because they need it for another purpose. They have an ambition for invading Earth through the wheel somehow. They realize that Jamie and the doctor have lost the time vector generator, and Corbin make Jamie take someone over to the rocket where it should be. The Cybermen initiate their plan as Jamie has to take Zoe over to the rocket with them. Leo is mad because he hates to put his child in danger. Zoe is supposed to be a teenager after all. Jamie and Zoe find the dead astronaut and they take his gun and head into the airlock for space equipment. While the meteorite spin closer and Gemma hides. When a Cyberman and an astronaut come in, the astronaut opens up the oxygen supply and he poisons the air by turning it into CO2. Corwin as the doctor have them switch to sectional supply when she is killed by a Cyberman in a very touching death scene. The meteorites head straight for Jamie and Zoe, who are taking a spacewalk over to the wheel. This leads into episode 6, where the meteorites are cleared and Tanya says that they must stop, while the doctor says that they should all be alright with Zoe's calculations. They destroyed all the meteorites, and Leo tells the doctor that if Jamie and Zoe are dead, it's all his fault. The doctor defends that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and they'll all be killed unless they switch over to sexual air supply. Of course, he means sectional, or else it's going to get very interesting in this episode. The Cybermen are going to poison the air, and the doctor tells Leo of Corwin's death. Jarvis wanders off, and they continue continue to fire on oncoming meteorites when they notice he's missing. They find him and tell him that he's lifted the force field as he's killed by a Cyberman. Jamie and Zoe have made it to the rocket and wait before doing anything. The Cybermen inject the poison into the air supply because they've switched over to, but it doesn't do anything because they've switched over to emergency supply. Cybermen report to the planner who computes the data. They check to see who's on the wheel still. Jamie found the rod and the Zoe makes it into the Cybermen's frequency, and the astronauts possess people on the wheel. And when they get to the doctor, they can't get any answers on who he is. He's Doctor Who, perhaps. The astronaut repeats that he doesn't know the man because he's being interrogated to get this information. The doctor still can't figure out why the Cybermen are here, and Leo and Enrico find that the ship is coming. They need to get the equipment from the power room while Jamie and Zoe come back to warn the doctor. Flanagan lures out Leo to get the radio spares with a free path, and the doctor decides to go. Flanagan will hold him up as soon as he can. The doctor tells Leo and Tanya to contain Flanagan when they get there. Flanagan is ready to destroy the force field while Jamie and Zoe head back slowly to the wheel. The doctor slips into the power room and finds Mercury that he needs and the spare rods. He goes to the doors and locks them and starts to mess around with some machinery. Jamie and Zoe find Corwin and slip back down the hallway where they meet Flanagan, who tells them to follow him. A Cyberman and the astronauts surmise that the doctor went through the air tunnels. Flanagan is knocked out in the power room, and Jamie says the Cybermen are trying to trap the doctor. He goes to the doctor to get the time vector generator, who is confronted by the Cybermen. He invites them in after they tell him that they must not transmit an SOS, and a large ship has the invasion fleet. They come in while the doctor electrocutes one of them, and the other tries to get through but goes back. Jamie comes through with Flanagan, and the doctor tries to blow up the cyber ship. He tells Leo that the ship moves closer. In the loading bay, Flanagan acts as if it is still under control, as outside Cybermen close in on the wheel, and Flanagan uses the quick-step plastic to kill a Cyberman, but the door is open. They close it as one tries to get in. The laser fires on the ship, and the Cybermen are forced backwards. The day has been saved. The wheel gets contact from Earth as the doctor and Jamie are guided back to the rocket by Zoe. Leo and Tanya profess their love for each other. Zoe doesn't want to go back to the wheel, as Jamie says she can't intrude on their world and goes back into the TARDIS. Inside, the doctor has finished the repairs and has some mercury left over. Zoe has snuck aboard, and the doctor says that if she doesn't change her mind about coming, she can. He has her watch the scanner while he emits his thoughts into the official television repeat of The Evil of the Daleks, ending the story. I have to confess that although some people find the story to be good, I think it's okay. The Cybermen make their latest appearance here and don't do much. The story is very slow-moving until episode 3, where its pace holds until episode 5, where it slows back down, speeds up right at the end of episode 6, leading to the repeat of a far superior story. The Cybermen don't really have an elaborate plan this time, unlike their previous appearances only 5 stories earlier, in the season premiere, Tomb of the Cybermen. The problem with where they had a plan of sitting and waiting to wake up from the ice tombs on Telos, and then take over the universe, where here their plan is invade a space station which doesn't have many tactical advantages, so you can conquer the Earth or something. It's also a real shame that the design isn't the tomb design, or / moon base, because I just don't like this design. There's the weird 3-fingered hands like the Centaurans would have later on, and it doesn't work. I mean, pictured here is the tomb design compared with this design. The acting's fine in most places. Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines do make episode 1 bearable with their undeniable chemistry, and Wendy Padbury puts in a good first appearance as Zoe. So that's a plus, I guess. The semi-multinational cast works well in most places, with one case of Yellowface being a little out of place, although it was common in the era not to have Asian actors. The direction by Tristan DeVere-Cole is especially boring in episode 3 and 6 when you can see it, and the only striking shot is of the spacewalks, which are nice, especially the one of the 3 Cybermen coming towards the wheel in episode 6, simply because the camera mirrors itself to give the illusion that there are actually 6 Cybermen, though you can tell why they never got DeVere-Cole back to direct Doctor Who again. All in all, I give Doctor Who, The Wheel in Space, 50% for being boring,
a boring retread with very little new to offer the Cybermen, and for having a very poor reconstruction. There really isn't a loose cannon reconstruction, so if you want to get the story, get the CD released in 2004 with the narration by Wendy Padbury, and the Lost in Time box set released in 2004 in Regions 1 and 2, and 2009 in Region 4. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time with the debut of Doctor Who writing legend Robert Holmes with The Crotons.